Today we're looking at a 2000 Honda Civic LX. It's about that time to start thinking about changing the fuel filter. Something that you need to do every so often. In this case, this is the second time we will be replacing the fuel filter in this vehicle. 91,000, just about 92,000 miles. This is something very simple. Anybody can do it in this vehicle. Just a couple of basic tools and something that we'll take a look at today. First thing that you need to do, once you have the fuel filter purchased, pop the hood of the vehicle. Next thing we're going to want to do is prop up the hood. Pull the latch, lift the hood, pull up the pop bar, put it into place. Next thing you're going to want to do is locate your fuel filter and make sure that the fuel filter that you've purchased from the automotive shop, Honda dealership, or purchased from another source matches the one that you have in your vehicle. In this case, up against the firewall just to the right of the battery. Battery's right here. This is your fuel filter. It's going to be very easy. All we have is an inlet and an outlet below. And we're going to be loosening this up. It's going to be very important that we have a cold engine. In this case, the car has not been run in 24 hours. But as long as the engine's cool, you're able to touch this. You're not going to have any heat. Any leaking fuel that comes out of this will not trigger any fires. Just to back you up and get your perspective, from the vehicle here, here's the front of the vehicle, emblem, spark plugs, oil reservoir, air intake, battery, fuel filter. In this case, I've picked up a Fram fuel filter from the shop, and we're going to go into how to put that in next. As you can see in this case, this is the part number that I have. Fram G7 559 fuel filter. Comes with this little cap on the inlet on the bottom, and again, outlet's going to be right here on the top. As you can see, it has this mounting bracket here, and that looks very, very similar. Obviously, I think we have the right one here to the one that's going to sit right here. So we know we have the correct fuel filter. And again, here's your part number for reference that I am using here today. More than welcome to go to the Honda dealership and get a Honda certified as well. If you prefer using socket wrenches, you're going to need a 17mm socket. You can also use a 17mm box or open end wrench, or a crescent wrench if you'd like. Right here on the top, all you want to do, just break this loose really quick. And be very careful as this moves here a little bit. And to make it easier, you may want to grab another 19mm and brace this while you have your socket wrench here breaking this loose, which I just did. Underneath, you're going to need a 14mm as well as that same 19mm, and we should be able to grapple along the bottom. It's probably not the easiest thing to show you, but there's going to be at the bottom of this another set right under here that we're going to need to break loose, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Once you get those loosened up, as you can see, there's a lot of fuel that's drained out of this. This is definitely why you want to have a cool engine. The next thing we want to do is this whole thing is now sitting within this bracket that encompasses this fuel filter. There's a 10mm bolt that we're going to need to remove to get that bracket out, which is located right back here. All I use is a little 1/4 inch socket, small extension, 10mm on the end. So I'll stick that down here. I probably won't be able to bring it along very easily, but as you can see, I can get that on there. Small extension, and I still have enough room to move this. So I'm going to go ahead and break that loose next here. Once we get that bracket off, it's just going to swing loose. I just took the bolt off. The whole bracket's going to swing loose, and we're able to pull this out, as you can see here. Sometimes the bracket will stay on here as you pull it off. This just slips right off. You can pull this off. This is what's going to go back on the vehicle. And now we have our old fuel filter. At the end here, you can start tapping on it and you get dirt coming out of this. This is why we're changing it. But now's a good time to compare this to the other fuel filter that you have, just to make sure everything looks 100% similar, which in our case it does. New and old here. Let's get you out of the light. A little bit easier to see over here. As you can see, we have the old and the new side by side. Same brackets, everything's identical. So we should be able to install this. We're going to just follow the reverse order. Another thing important to note is that there are a couple of crush washers that are going to be on either side of this fitting here. And again, this is the fitting from the top. There's going to be one on the top in between the bolt that we broke loose and the filter. The new fuel filter that you purchase should come with a new set for you within the box. So I usually just put these aside and let those hit here, sit there. We'll just kind of clean this up a little bit with a rag so it's not so dirty when we put it back in. And reverse the order, we should be able to then start the engine. Keep you posted. It's really hard to fit the camera underneath the hood here, but another important thing to note when installing your new filter is that in addition to the easily noticeable cap on the bottom, there's a small black cap in the top that would prevent fuel flow from you screwing into this that needs to be removed. So you need to pull those out. Now you're ready to install your new unit. Again, we've kind of cleaned up the area here. We should be able to just set this right back in. I'm going to grab that bracket and show you how that goes back in. Bracket here. You're going to have one end with the hole. This is the 10mm that we took out from the firewall side of the vehicle. That will go on this side, but you need to stick this into a small little hole here, and you'll see it's the only hole in here, and this will flip around. So what we need to do is line everything up correctly, back up, so we can put the fuel filter back in and line everything up accordingly. So I'll stop the camera here, grab the rest of everything that I need, and we should be ready to go. Okay, I think the easiest thing to do for everybody is the bottom fuel line kind of has a flared fitting here at the end that's going to fit into the bottom of your fuel filter. Rather than try to grapple everything all in one hand, I like to, and I kind of do have everything on one hand. I have the two new washers that are for the top that come in the pack. This is going to be the fitting that goes on into the top. And I kind of have all that in one hand. I do not have the bracket in my hand. I have that sitting over here on the battery. But what I like to do is I like to sit this bottom fitting just right on top of that flared fitting, and it'll just kind of hold itself there, so you don't have to have a third hand. And if you just kind of lay it in there, it'll kind of hold itself, and then all you kind of need to do is have a finger ready. I'm going to set these down, and I'm going to grab the fitting that we talked about before. And in addition to these two washers that are for the top, the pack also comes with a new washer for the 10mm fitting for the bracket. Not necessary that you change it, but if you do have it new, you might as well use it. Again, the bracket, this small nub here is going to fit into the hole, and it's going to flip around. We'll put that 10mm in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, here's the washer on it for the 10mm. I'm going to grab that. Just with my thumb, I'm going to hold this, stick this into the hole, and flip this bracket around. It's kind of now going to be fairly rigid in there. And I'm going to just by hand put this into the back side. then we'll tighten everything up again by hand. We do need to align this top bracket, and I will go over that here in a second. Trying to work around the camera here, so it's a little bit more difficult. Make sure I got all that in there before I do all this work. Okay, I'll be right back with you. Okay, and we got that bracket not all the way tightened up, but most of the way tightened up. If we leave this a little bit loose, what that enables us to do is spin this. This bracket here is specifically designed for this fuel line to rest into, so we want to just make sure that we have that lined up where we kind of think we want it before we tighten up the rest of this back of this bracket here. So in this case, what I'm going to do, and what I like to do, is work kind of in reverse order how we took it apart. I'm going to leave this down below. I'm going to grab this bottom fitting, which we have resting underneath, which we talked about, and I'm going to tighten that up first. Again, I'm going to utilize the 14 millimeter as well as the 19 millimeter open end wrenches, just to make sure that I get that pretty close to perfect tightened up. Then what we'll be able to do is still kind of spin this. I think that's about where we want it, so I'm just going to keep an eye on that while I'm monkeying around, and that'll enable me to get everything that I want 100%. Move the camera back out of the way so I can get my arms in here and tighten up this bottom piece. Okay, we have that bottom bracket tightened back up, and I went ahead and tightened this up because everything looks like it is where I wanted. Just to get a couple of more inches in where I was, when I had both wrenches in here underneath, I went ahead and took the airbox assembly out. It's just 4 clips, and I'll show you how to put that back in, and it takes 2 seconds to pull out. So at this point, all we have left to do is put that top, I believe they call it, well anyway, the top bolt back in for the fuel delivery. Again, that's going to be this here, which has the hole hollow with the hole on here. Before we do that, we want to make sure that we have our 2 new washers that we talked about. One of which is going to go in between here and this, so we're going to go ahead and put one of them on. And then we're going to sneak this through this. The other which is going to go in between here and the filter. So we'll put that on, and again we just kind of sneak it between these 2 brackets. Banjo fitting, whatever they call this. And we'll go ahead and start tightening this down by hand. And then we'll come back through and tighten it up all the way. And again, you just want to make sure that this fits right through here. The top has kind of this little T that sticks out, and there's a little slot within this bracket on the firewall that fits into. So it's pretty easy to determine exactly where you want it. We were talking about adjusting it just right. You'll kind of be able to see where this will flip into right here. But now we're nice and secure. All we need to do is tighten this top piece down. And again, kind of reverse of what we were doing before. If you were just to torque this, the whole thing's going to try to spin on you. So just to give you that extra support, you're going to take that 19 millimeter. You may be able to sneak a 3/4 inch if your socket set doesn't. If you don't have a 19 millimeter wrench, I know those a lot of them stop at 17 or 18. You probably can fit a 3/4 inch just right onto this as well. And we'll just kind of get that tight like that, and we should be good to go. Get everything tightened back up. You want to make sure you don't have any leaks. I gotta tell you, I'm not very impressed. The fuel filter I bought wound up being the wrong one. So that one that we just spent all the time working on, this is not the one that you need for your 96 to 2000 Honda Civic. Thought I had the bottom tightened up. This is actually a different thread type, so I had fuel leaking everywhere. I had to reinstall the old one, and we'll have to go get the correct one. So I'll update you on the correct model number that you're gonna need. Get that all tightened back up, and we'll finish this video up. Like I said before, the filter we tried to install last time, the Fram filter, wound up having a leak on the bottom inlet side of the filter. So I had to reinstall the old dirty filter and return that one. I wasn't very satisfied with that. Went back to I wound up buying that from O'Reilly's. Went back there, and they assured me it was the correct filter. I think the issue is just the build quality of it was not up to par. I wound up going to the Honda dealership, and so I'll put this here. This is the part number that you need from Honda, and you have to pay more for it from Honda. 16010-ST5-E02. I do like how the certified Honda parts are not made in Japan, but with that stated, the filter that I bought, the Fram filter, when you pull this off, rather than having a standard threaded fitting here, this was all painted. Like, this coating on the outside was painted or baked on the inside, and I don't think that the threads were quite able to be sealed correctly, and I think that was the issue, because they again, they did assure me that it was the correct filter. So they refunded my money, and I did go to Honda, but this is the part number. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall this, and we'll pick up where we left off on the other video. One thing that I did state was that I would show you how to remove that air box, so let me show you how to do that real quick. To remove the air box, to give ourselves some more room to put our hand in here with the wrenches, all you have to do, very simple, is remove these, just pull these clips out. There's two on the other side. And then all you're going to need to do is pull directly up. This can come up, and it'll pop out on the other side of all the clamps. Then this whole piece comes off, and we're going to be able to function quite a bit easier down in here with the wrenches. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back apart like we did before. Again, it's going to be the 17 millimeter here with the 19 to hold, 14 on the bottom with the 19 to hold, and then the 10 millimeter socket to pull the bracket off. So I'm going to get that off, and we'll put the new one back in here for you. Next thing you want to do before you put the air cleaner back onto the vehicle, and you have everything tightened back up, is you want to ensure that the rest of these bracket screws are tightened as well. They can come loose over time in the vehicle driving. These are also the same 10 millimeter that you used for your bracket going around here. In this case, we have the top tightened, bottom tightened, brackets tightened, and we've tightened all of these with the 10 millimeter. The next thing to do is to either have somebody turn the key on or put the key in the on position without turning the car over, which will engage the fuel pump and make sure that you don't have any leaks coming through here. That's what we'll do next. Put the airbox cover back on before you start your vehicle. A couple of holes you need to line up, and you'll see where they go. It's pretty straightforward. Clicks in. Push these clips back up, and if need be, it's probably a good time to service your air filter as well. Okay, then all you have to do is start your vehicle. No leaks, so we're good.